Let's talk about HOT O SYN THESIS. I pronounced it that way for a very specific reason, but all the other mispronunciations in this video are just for fun. Photosynthesis is this wildly important and complex biological process that essentially puts the living in every living thing, and in this video I want to cover 5 basic facts about it so that if it ever just happens to come up naturally in a conversation, like at a party or something, you're not left going, yeah, I know that word, and also I know what that is, because that could totally happen, and I don't want it to happen to you, so let's get started. P is for plants and also plagiarism, because see, plants tend to get all the credit when it comes to photosynthesis, but do they deserve all of the credit that they get? I'm not so sure. For one thing, plants did not invent the process, they stole it from bacteria, and for another thing, they don't do nearly as much of it as they may lead you to believe with their planty propaganda. And of course, I recognize that by recording pretty much this entire video outside in a forest, I'm just kind of subconsciously giving the plants even more of the credit. Oopsies. I'm in editing mode right now and realized that later on in the video there are actually a few times that I messed this up, only referring to plants, even though it's not just plants that perform the process that I seem unable to pronounce. So anyway, I just wanted to draw attention to that. Also, this is a puzzle. It all started more than 8 years ago when a certain bacteria called cyanobacteria came up with a new version of an old idea. Other bacteria were already eating sunlight for breakfast, but cyanobacteria were the first ones to say, what if we pooped out oxygen while we do it? This literally changed the entire world forever. And this great oxidation event, formerly known as the Great Oxidation Event, is believed to have allowed for the evolution of complex life in the first place. A few minutes later, you end up with something called algae floating around in the water, and the story goes that some of the algae gobbled up some of the cyanobacteria, and slowly over time through the process of evolution converted that cyanobacteria into something called a chloroplast. The green algae later evolved into what we know as plants in the modern world. But the cyanobacteria and algae never evolved away. They're still here and they're still doing a large portion of the work. In fact, a specific type of algae known as phytoplankton, which lives in the ocean, is believed to produce at least 50% of all of the oxygen in our atmosphere. And depending on the time of year and some other conditions, scientists believe that it can produce up to 80% of all of the oxygen that exists in the atmosphere. So these guys are kind of slacking by comparison to what they may have you believe otherwise. Next up is hot, like the sun. That thing can burn you, man. It can burn me, but it has a hard time burning Phil, as in chlorophyll. See, chlorophyll is a specialized pigment that absorbs sunlight, but in my opinion, it has a kind of strange reaction to it. When the lights come on, chlorophyll throws away some of its electrons as if it was caught holding something that it wasn't supposed to have. And then regret sets in. Phil wants his electrons back, but the problem is they're gone at this point. So he's going to need to get new ones. Phil then recruits his buddy Enzo to go do the dirty work for him. Enzo is just slang for enzyme. The enzyme finds nearby water molecules, grabs them by the hydrogens, and yanks electrons off of them to hand back over to the chlorophyll. But the problem is that as long as the sun is still shining, the chlorophyll is going to keep ditching the new electrons and constantly need a new flow of electrons in to match the flow of electrons out. This sets up the beginning of something called the electron transport chain, which is kinda, but not really, but kinda like the flow of electricity in a wire. After all, it is just a series of electrons that are flowing along and having their energy used to perform work in the upcoming steps. And realistically, this entire process of photosynthesis is powered by chlorophyll's intense desire to take new electrons, coupled with its complete inability to hang on to them when the sun is shining. But now what about those poor mangled water molecules? Once the electrons have been ripped off, what you're left with is 2 hydrogen ions that are going to be used in a later step and one lone oxygen atom. And that starts with an O, which is our next section. Oxygen is out. Plants don't use oxygen the way we do. They use it backwards, and they get rid of it instead of breathing it in like our lungs need to for us to survive. So the plants just get rid of it. They send it away. Each water molecule gives up one oxygen atom, and moments later it pairs up with another oxygen atom to create atmospheric oxygen that you and I breathe. But it's interesting that the plants just throw it away like it's useless. Syn is for synthesis, because I couldn't think of anything better for that one. Synthesis just means combining things or putting things together, and from the perspective of the plant or the algae or the cyanobacteria, whatever is doing the magic, this is the very important step, because this is where it basically cooks its food. And what are the ingredients? Well, we've still got those two leftover hydrogen ions from earlier, but a new ingredient on the scene is carbon dioxide. With the right proportions of these things, they go through a series of unbelievably complicated steps involving things like ATP, NADPH, thylakoids, etc. And what you end up with is a glucose molecule, which is the sugar that's the actual food for plants. So the sunlight itself isn't really the food. It provides the energy for a series of like 37 million steps in a row that nobody understands. Some people understand them. I think some people understand them. And it turns it into sugar that the plant uses for food. And last up, we have thesis, the main idea, the central theme, because that is what photosynthesis truly is for all life on Earth. None of this would be possible without it, and it's all initiated with light from the sun that allows certain organisms to convert their surroundings into nutrients for themselves, and subsequently for us. And all life on Earth owes cyanobacteria a little bit of thanks. So let's do that. That's all that I had for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day.